So in previous episodes, we have looked into the idea of running with energy. We have looked into the idea of creative visualization as well. And we're going to look a little bit more now into the idea of colors and light. So again, you do not have to be visual in order for you to connect in utilizing light rays, or color frequencies. What can be done, actually, is if you actually have a palette with you. So let's say, for example, that I drew 7 circles here. 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, as I don't have a color marker, I'm just using the black marker here to give a generic impression of the type of colors, right? So we would have a red ray. We would have an orange ray. We would have a yellow ray. We would have a green ray. We would have a blue ray. We would have a purple ray. We would have a violet ray, okay? These are just some particular examples of what we're doing to connect with the spectrum. So we're just going to kind of go through here and get the idea of what it is that we're working with as it pertains to colors. Now, purple can also represent that of pink as well too, okay? So we can put pink in there as well. So let's firstly take a look at the red ray. What does the red ray symbolize? Well, some people may look at a rose and say, oh, it must be about love. It isn't really about love, no. It's more so that the idea that the red energy is a lot about physicality. It's about stability and structure, organization. Okay? Physicality, stability, structure, organization. Now, basically, again, for those of you who are visual and who are able to sense or being able to pick up the idea of someone's aura, that may be a very, very muddy color. So if we're basically looking at a red energy here, that may be very, very mucky. That's kind of almost like mud thrown into the mix. This again represents different forms of characteristics as it pertains to tension. Okay, it can represent disassociation, it can represent physical imbalance, it can represent instability, it can represent disorganization. It can also represent, again, a lot of base emotions in that way that may feel negatively aligned. Now, when we're looking at the idea, for example, of a very, very bright color, and this isn't just for red, this is pretty much for all the color spectrums as well. When we're detecting a very, very bright color, which I'm just using as an example symbol reference here, we're looking at someone who is not really grounded. We're looking at someone who in that sense is very much fixated in regards to imagination, fixated to the idea of dream playing, fixated to the idea of, again, being very, very floaty and in the clouds. And that can represent the idea of another polarity. Now again, there's nothing quote-unquote wrong with either of these frequencies. This is just giving us an indication that there are certain forms of imbalances. And we're doing what we can as healers to correct that in the best way that we can. So again, we have the dense, muddy, yucky kind of energy in that way. Again, looking like mud, looking like harsh debris in that form. And again, representing instability, representing kind of like an aggressiveness. It's kind of like seeing something going against the grain in that particular way. A lot of resistance, a lot of retaliation, a lot of disorder, a lot of disconnection, a lot of feeling that there is a disconnection to oneness, a disconnection to the self, a disconnection to one's own emotions. Their emotions have taken over. And again, over here, just not being able to come down to earth, not being able to feel physical, just feeling very, very floaty and airy, and not being able to digest or interrelate with the earth plane. Again, not feeling physical, not feeling that you are here and that you are present in that way. So this can represent the bands between the two, between something that is very light and illuminated and one that is very mucky and dark. Okay? So again, this can represent all of these particular bands in regards to any particular color frequency. So again, the red ray, physicality, stability, organization, solid foundation. Okay? And we're looking over at the orange ray. Okay? This can do with relationships, sexuality. Okay? This can also represent the idea of body-mind connection. Body-mind connection. It's basically just helping us to connect more to the idea of the spot right below the navel, which represents the sacral chakra. Just looking into relationships, how we connect to others, how we connect to the earth, how we connect to our environment, how do we connect to our own foreground and background of reality, of life. And so again, if we're looking into the idea to where there has been imbalances, it can represent the idea of grief. It can represent the idea of not feeling connected, disconnection, disassociation, highly individualized, separate from everybody else, right? So that would represent an orange ray. So again, when we're utilizing a lot of orange, we're looking into restoring the opposites of those aforementioned states. And of course, we have the yellow ray. Okay? The yellow ray, again, represents that of well-being, has that to do with the core of the self. Everything pertaining to the self, the core, our own inner sun. Inner sun. And again, this can be blocked by egotistical thinking. The feeling that we are not confident in ourselves, that we lack value, that we lack harmony within ourselves, that we lack worth. So a lot in regards to the disassociation of value and worth when we again look into the aspects of the mucky energy. And again, it can also represent overconfidence, the idea where you can go into the lighter frequencies. Just overconfidence, cocky, feeling that you know what's best for you when really you don't. Kind of putting on a facade in that way, letting the ego run the show. Okay, so that would be the yellow particular energy. Then we have the green ray. Okay, now the green ray represents more of a vitality. It is a love frequency, absolutely. It does represent love because it is connected to the heart, but it's more of a love that pertains to self-trust, that represents to initiation of new ideas. Okay, initiation of ideas. Okay, being able to initiate ideas, it also represents a responsibility. Okay? It also represents vitality, nature, connection to nature. Okay? That's representing more of the green ray. So before we go on to these other ones, someone may ask, well, Brad, what is the color ray that would represent love in that particular way? Well, it wouldn't really be the green ray, because that's more of a loving trust energy. It would be more of the pink ray. The pink ray would be more of a love frequency. So again, if we're looking at pink here, this would be more that represents love, that represents harmony. This is why some auric readers are able to sense a lot of pink energy, especially around the heart, when one is in love, when one has a really harmonious relationship, when one just absolutely loves their job, when people are committing themselves to service and sending love to other people. That can really represent more of the pink ray energy. Okay? So again, this represents the green ray. Initiation of ideas, responsibility, vitality, nature, trust, honoring, loving the self in that particular way. So again, if we're moving here to the blue ray, now again, there's two aspects to the blue ray. We can look at something that's more of an aquamarine frequency or turquoise frequency that represents the throat chakra. And of course, we have the oceanic blue as well too that can correspond to the third eye chakra. And of course, there is a blending between the blue and the purple of the indigo ray that can also represent the third eye chakra as well too. So a lot of this, for looking at the aquamarine ray, has to do with expression, has to do with soothing and stabilizing. Almost like melting in joy in the best way. I've noticed that when I've used healing on myself, I've used a lot of aquamarine or turquoise energy because it's so soothing, it's so warm. It's just this beautiful oozing of color that just makes you feel so warm and wonderful inside. That really represents the idea of aquamarine. Or again, you can look at it as turquoise ray as well too. So expression, soothing, stabilizing, warmth, compassion. Okay, very much just in those lines if we're looking at the aquamarine frequency. Okay. Now if we're looking at the blue ray frequency here, we're looking at insight. We're looking at intuition. We're looking at growth. We're looking at evolution. Okay, we're being able to connect a lot more into the intangible. We're bringing the surreal into the real, right? So it's basically that bridge between the surreal and the real, utilizing our intuition, connecting that into the physical realm, being able to bring that into harmony with our lives, allowing spirit, allowing our own intuition, allowing our inner psychic senses to bring in all of these intangible ideas and bringing them into physical reality. The blue ray can also assist in regards to stability as it pertains to the physical and to the non-physical in that particular way, to the positive and to the negative. It's helping us really work together in clamping in, stabilizing, locking in the frequency between the intangible, the spirit realm, and the physical, the tangible realm. Being able to really balance that in. When you're noticing that you're working with a lot of blue energy, this again represents kind of like a harvesting of spiritual energy coming into the physical realm. And then we're sweeping it all the way down. And of course, we can use other corresponding colors to help us move into that. But it really represents like a grasping energy, helping to really digest. It's kind of like when we're babies and we need to have that, soft kind of food. We have a lot of liquid, right? To being able to process that and bringing that into our bodies in regards to easement. That again can represent a lot of the blue ray frequency. Okay? Purple itself, if we're looking into the purple ray again does represent another aspect of intuition. It also represents spiritual bonding. Okay, it's representing the idea of a gateway that's opening. A prelude in regards to receiving spiritual information, right? So the purple ray really represents that connection to spirit. It helps us to remember to bond. It's kind of like if we're a baby, we're opening up their mouth, we're about to receive the food. The blue ray will help to digest it down. The purple ray is helping us to bring this into our awareness, bring this into our being altogether. So that intuition, that spiritual bonding, that connection. Purple ray again can also represent harmony, can represent higher dimensional spiritual love in that way, more of an acceptance, a union. So it represents that particular energy. And of course, pink ray would be more into the idea of pure love frequency, just love and appreciation and warmth and compassion for yourself, for others, for the earth, for nature. That really reflects pink ray. Pink ray is all about that harmonious, heartfelt love frequency. Even though, again, yes, emerald green is contained in the heart, again, as stated, that's a different kind of energy pertaining to love. This would be much more in the lighter aspect, again, where we see a lot of those pink colors and we just feel like we melt as soon as we see pink, right? Wherever it may be. We just have that instant reaction of love, appreciation, warmth, compassion, just pure acceptance. Of course, then we're going into the violet ray. This will represent spiritual connection. This represents interconnectedness. Okay, spiritual connection, interconnectedness, connection to the spiritual realm, opening up into the higher frequencies of ethereal, astral, mental consciousness, more of the mental planes. So the violet and the higher violet frequency works together in the idea of working in the purity of spirit. Okay? So this is just giving us a very brief overview. There can also be a lot of more expressions about these colors as well too that I'm sure people will get. But this is just giving us a little bit of a crash course peek overview about utilizing these particular rays. Right? So now that we're getting a basic understanding of what they're being used for, and we get a basic understanding about the mucky colors and about the very bright colors, the whole idea is about being able to take, for example, a mucky color like this, okay? And let's say that it's moving in this direction. We just see this mucky red, for example, that's just spiraling in this counterclockwise direction. So if we're able to visualize that or even feel it in that particular way, and that is how it's being interpreted by us, what we're basically doing is we're locking on to that frequency as we have witnessed it, and we're now going to be able to put just a little bit more of lighter illumination into it. Not a major amount, but just enough to counteract it. And so again, if this is moving in a counterclockwise direction, we want to imagine that we're now bringing this into a clockwise direction. And we're now lacing it with a little more illuminated version of that particular color, right? So we're just balancing it out nice and softly. And we're just imagining that we're spinning it the other way. And then you just really need to follow your intuition about when that is enough, because it's not like someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, that's enough, right? Now, sometimes maybe a guide will do that. If you have a very strong, intimate connection with your guide, maybe that'll happen. But you're basically just observing how this flows. You know, if you're seeing it kind of moving at a certain rate, maybe it's going very, very slowly, right? You want to do the exact same. So it's going back to that law of physics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So we want to move this just as slowly and utilizing an opposite vibration, a nice light illumination to helping bringing that color back into its traditional form of red. A good, solid, healthy red color, not too illuminated, not too darkened in that particular way, right? So that's what we're doing in regards to visualization with color frequency, okay? So now if we're going to look at light, which will be the next discussion here, we're going to look into the light rays. Now, light will work a little bit more differently than just the idea of color, okay? Because again, color can go hand in hand with light, but we're utilizing light in a bit more of a different way here rather than just playing with the color frequencies and rotation as it may relate to a chakra center, okay? So when you're dealing with light, okay, just going to put it like this, okay? When you're dealing with light frequency, you are dealing with an information packet, right? That's exactly what light represents. It contains data, it contains knowledge, it contains wisdom, it contains memory, right? So when we're using light frequencies, we want things to correspond into that particular way. So we may, for example, see that that root chakra, once again, is just spiraling and it's getting pretty mucky here, right? So what we want to do is we want to associate the idea of light being this packet bringer, this aspect of data, but more so in the idea of actually being able to bring it into the awareness of this imbalance. And what this is doing is that all that represents the harmony of light, all of that data, is reprogramming that particular chakra center to function back into its peak state. So basically what that means is you can look at this particular light as, again, a red ray, right? Being able to look at a red ray light, and you're just shining it upon the chakra. It's almost as if you could imagine that you're opening that area of the base of the spine, and it's like that chakra is now being exposed. And it's now just imagining that you can just raise your hand, and through your palm chakra, you're able to summon a red ray light energy. As again, it is information, it is natural healing. It is a data packet that is bringing everything back into the instructions and programming of natural order. So again, kind of like what they're discovering in science right now with the idea of the purity of light rays and utilizing lasers in healing as well too. Re-establishing, restoring the idea of the original information blueprint of how the body can work, of how the chakra centers can work together. So what we're doing is, for example, we can open up our palm chakras, as you've seen in previous episodes, and just being able to imagine that these rays of red light are coming in. And again, you're following the opposite direction to where this imbalance lies. So if your client, in that sense, is on a table and says, yeah, my root chakra doesn't feel really good, it just feels very, very heavy. And again, you can sense or you can visualize whatever may come through, and you're just kind of putting your hand there. And if I'm a person who's not very visual, I'm just getting the feeling. There's something magnetically, intuitively telling me that his chakra center is, again, spiraling very slowly in this mucky red color, okay? And I've gotten those in the past. So what we're doing is we're just talking to our hand. We're talking to our hand and saying, bring forward the red ray of healing light, okay? And just being able to perform the activation, stimulating your palm chakra to making sure that energy is being run. Again, remembering the breath. and just imagining that these rays of red light are coming through, and again, like we did previously, is returning it the other way. Okay? So we're just bringing that illuminated red light to attempt to rebalance that root chakra. So we're utilizing the light rays, which is restoring natural order, utilizing all of its data, all of its information, all of its insight to return it back into natural order. So you can utilize the idea of healing just with color frequency, or you can utilize the idea of bringing in light ray and actually helping to restore the energy as well too. It is your preference. You do not have to use one or the other, or you can use both. Whatever you feel is best, is being able to use light frequency or just playing with colors in that particular way. Either one will work quite well. I've certainly worked with both. I've been able just to spin a person's chakra, being able to look at the appropriate color vibration that will restore it back into natural order, and it works fantastic. I also utilize the idea of certain light rays, sometimes in a rainbow spectrum, just over the person's body, and just summoning this rainbow light, again, like light rays that are just piercing pleasantly the entire layer of the outer physical body, and being able to just allow that to soften in, and being able just to call in your guides, call in your healers, and allowing them to come through as well too, and bringing in that energy to the body so that it can really soften, so it really feels that really beautiful, harmonious healing sensation that comes into the body. Just feeling this relaxation, this tranquility, this beautiful serenity that's coming through. Okay? So when we're utilizing light frequency, we are recoding. We are recoding DNA, we are recoding chakra centers. Okay? Now the chakra centers' purposes, if we were to look at it in this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So we got the 7 chakra centers there, all the way down to the root, all the way up to the crown chakra. But Brad, what is the purpose of the chakra centers? Well, they are seals. They are seals that are actually keeping the soul contained within the body. It would be no more different than if you had a rain jacket and you are sealing that rain jacket up with particular buttons. You are basically allowing the chakra centers to be these seals that are containing dimensional aspects of your own soul, condensed in the idea of rainbow body light form, to operate appropriately within the body and have this experience. So they are the setting up seals. They are the life seals. They are what make us what we are as it relates to the physical body, as it relates to being able to live within this experience. So the physical body in that sense is not, shall we say, swallowing the idea of the chakra centers. The physical body is just a small part of everything that represents our soul. It is the physical conduit, but it's not something that represents the priority measure that is keeping the soul inside. Right? So the body is just a tool. It is just an interface. It is contained in regards to the hub of the physical that represents our form, where again the chakra centers are sealing the different dimensional constructs of our soul, and that our body represents the appropriation and significance of that design. It is energetically efficient in regards to its calibration of being to function in a reality such as this. So it is the soul that has created the body. It's not about the body in that sense, harvesting the soul and being such a big, gigantic responsibility as it pertains to our energy. That's just the physical representation of the conduit as it continues to go through this experience. So again, the soul is in, it is around, it is outside, it is everywhere pertaining to that. Right? So again, this is just kind of giving the idea of the perception that the chakra centers are sealing those particular forms of dimensional constructs, those dimensional patterns for us, for the soul in that sense, to be infused into the body, and again, representing that expansion, representing those different fields that exist outside the body, that exist within the body, etc. Okay, so that's basically what the chakra centers are here to do. They are helping us to maintain an equilibrium as it pertains to our own life experience. They're keeping us grounded, they're keeping us centered, they're keeping us here in physical. this would really be the correspondence to the soul in regards to these different dimensional constructs. And of course, we do have an 8th chakra. We do have a 9th, a 10th, 11th, and a 12th that goes all the way from a soul chakra that goes all the way up into a universal consciousness chakra as well too. So you can look at it as 12. Then of course there can even represent different forms of ascension experiences that can create a 13th chakra in that way. But really, that's not even counting a lot of the other smaller aperture chakras that are contained in our body as well too. People could even look at the idea of the meridian centers as chakra centers, even in that particular way as well too. We have a lot of them, but again, these would be the idea of what we would know as the esoteric chakras. The chakras that are sealing our soul to have some type of projection, to have some type of interface manifested through the soul, to have this particular type of experience. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that as it pertains to the chakra centers. Okay, I hope I did my best to explain that. Some people may have questions and say, what are you saying? That the body itself really isn't that important? Well, it has an importance because it is an interface. It's what's allowing us to function in this way, but it's not necessary. No, the body itself is not in any way in control of our particular energies. It's all about the energies that are working together with our body, and our body is a construct, a development, a particular technology that is appropriate for this plane to be developed so that we can have this physical life experience. So it's all thanks to the soul for that, never for the body. Body is just following the guidance to where the soul is taking us. Okay. So I'm just going to clear all this off. So basically, this is where you can go into your own kind of homework assignment as well too, and just start to scan your body, because in the next episode we're going to be looking into the idea of more about scans and diagnosis, right? But tonight, just being able to, or this morning, wherever you are in the world, is just being able to look at your physical body and just start to either visualize or just sense what is happening within the energy body. How does your body feel? Are there any aches or pains? Is there any emotional or mental trauma that's happening? Just giving yourself a good scan, right? And as you may feel that there may be an area that may be causing some disruption, just again, activating your palm chakras and just putting your hand, let's say for example, it's on the chest, it's right around here around the solar plexus, and you're just tuning into that, okay? So sometimes you may get a visual understanding. Sometimes you may just get this clear cognizant awareness that something feels off, okay? You may just want to take out a piece of paper and you're just kind of drawing it about how it feels. So maybe you're able to see it as a spiral. It's kind of like this, and I'm seeing these dots, seeing these particles contained in my solar plexus. And so it just feels like I have a weakening. It just feels like there's a discomfort in my solar plexus. Oh great, this is what we can do to work with that. So whatever that image portrays itself as, we want to be able to see its opposite, okay? For every action is an equal and opposite reaction. So we want to be able to utilize, again, if we're seeing this in colors and we're seeing black bits here, and again, if that's moving into a clockwise direction, we want to be able to move that into a counterclockwise direction that is completely free of these little particles, free of these little aspects of debris. And again, we may feel that maybe the color there is still intact. It still represents a good medium yellow in that way. So we're just going to continue to use medium yellow. So we'll continue to use medium yellow here. And we're just imagining that that is free of any particular particles. Because those particles, that debris within here, can represent states of emotional balance, ego imbalance, self-imbalance, etc. So we're just attempting to warm ourselves by bringing in this opposite directional energy of the yellow ray, free of any particular forms of debris and particles. And we're just moving our hand appropriately in regards to the direction that is the opposite to this one, right? So this one's moving clockwise, this one is moving counterclockwise. So if I'm looking at counterclockwise in my energy, see if I can do that right. So we're moving in this particular direction, counterclockwise, from my point of view anyways. And we're just feeling that. Now we may want to, again, put some yellow ray light into that as we're again moving in that rotation. Or again, we may just want to swirl the color of yellow, completely free of any of those particular particles. And we're again utilizing the breath. We're breathing in, we're breathing out, we're breathing in this beautiful light ray of yellow energy. We're breathing out those particles. We're just feeling that debris leaving our mouth. And again, we can put it into a white light. We can disperse it around nature. You can put it into the sun, whatever you feel is appropriate. Okay? But this is basically just doing a state of self-healing, using color frequency and using light rays as well too. But in the next episode, we'll look more into self-scanning and diagnosis as well too, to helping a little bit further about looking into what these common forms of imbalances may be within the chakra centers as well. So thank you so much everybody for watching. I'm Brad Johnson and I look forward to speaking to you again in the next video. Take care, namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.